Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our second day to our publication panel. Today, we're sitting down with Olivia from Lithium magazine. Olivia is the founding editor-in-chief of Lithium and editor-in-chief of adolescent content. She has written for Crybaby Zine, Killer and a Sweet Thing, and is currently is student at Columbia studying creative writing and political science. Olivia can most often be found tweeting about her IUD and being Italian, spending too much money in eyelash extensions, and writing overly personal essays. So, yeah, Olivia, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I mean, you said pretty much everything about me, but I'm really excited to be here and just talk more about lithium. I founded it when I was 15, so now it's 5 years old, which is crazy. So lots to talk about.
If you guys have any specific questions you want to ask her, feel free to drop them in the chat and we would love to answer them along the way. But the first thing is tell us about yourself and lithium. We want to know everything about you.
Definitely. So like Rebecca said, which pretty much encapsulated everything. My name is Olivia. I'm 20 years old. I'm a student in Columbia. I have been the editor-in-chief of adolescent content for 2 or 3 years now, and I've been the founding editor-in-chief of Lithium since I started when I was 15. Um, Both publications are all run by like basically young people who are looking to talk about things without being censored. So we cover everything from sex to mental health to money to politics. I was just talking to Rebecca before this, and she was like, she sees it as Lithium kind of being like a sex magazine, which is honestly true. Like so much of our content is about that because I think that a lot of young people, especially female identifying people, are dealing with the same insecurities and questions. So we've kind of been trying recently to focus on exploring those things and allowing people to just talk through everything they're experiencing in the realm of sex without being censored in any way. So that's been really fun. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
Awesome. So, what originally inspired you to make lithium?
I feel like the spiel that I tell everyone is that when I was 15, I was reading a lot of publications like Teen Vogue, Cosmopolitan, and it felt like a lot of 20-something-year-old people were trying to sound younger, like they were my age, and it felt kind of pandering, like it was just frustrating. And I was definitely in the part of Instagram that was really obsessed with Rookie, and I was seeing some of my friends online start zines, and I was like, oh, if they can do that, I feel like I can too. And I felt like I had something to contribute to it. So I don't know. I feel like I was on a part of Instagram where there were so many creative young people who were just bored and just felt like, why don't we do something with our time? And so we just kind of went for it. And it was really exciting to have young people saying what they wanted instead of being pandered to by 20-something-year-olds. Like, I think that was really the most driving part of it.
Yeah, definitely. So, what is the meaning behind your name? Lithium is such a cool name.
I was going through a little bit of a Nirvana phase in my freshman year, and I really liked the song Lithium. And there's this line in it that says, I like it, I'm not going to crack, whatever. And I liked the resilience behind that idea. I was just like being angsty. There's really not a profound poetic story behind it. It's funny because we have a question on our applications about like, what does lithium mean to you? And people will always be like, lithium is an element on the periodic table. It's like an extremely resilient kind of metal. And I'm like, wow, I appreciate that. That is so much more profound than anything I could have been going for when I named it, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Love that. So what was it like starting a magazine at such a young age? I can't even fathom starting like a magazine at 15 years old, let alone like 20 now. I still feel like I'm a baby, but what
Yeah,
was it like just like being on the internet and starting this whole thing at such a young age?
it was just fun. Like I felt like none of it, I'd never thought it was going to be around for that long. So it was just kind of like a fun project. I had no kind of web design experience. So I was just trying to figure out Weebly. That was the site we used to use to host the site. So I was just like making an Instagram for it, making a Gmail account for it, designing the website, and just kind of playing around. Like I started it over my winter break. So that was just something that I was doing every day, just having fun with it. Yeah, it was like I very much was not taking it seriously, did not think it was going to turn into anything. And so it was fun to just have something to play around with. That's really all I saw it as, just like something fun to interact with people online. It was like it was truly just like a passion project.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And we definitely started out as a passion project as well. So
Yeah.
since you have been going on for literally 5 years, what has kept you motivated?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think the team. Like I am seriously so impressed by the people we work with and just like the really thoughtful, interesting pieces that they put out that are things that I honestly would want to read even if I wasn't part of Lithium. So I just feel like if I can help them go towards that and like be publishing these pieces, and it's worthwhile to me. Like it's always just been fun, and I feel like it truly does start conversations, whether it's in real life with my actual friends or it's the people online. And that just makes it feel worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely. So, going back to our little joke about how you guys are a sex zine, what inspired you to make a print copy related to that?
Okay, so, yeah, so we have a 100-page sex issue that has a dominatrix on the cover. I think I brought my issue to school, otherwise I would show it. But what I've always said is that Lithium kind of reflects my interest, and it's grown with me as I've gotten older. So we were publishing pieces about high school and everything like that, SATs, whatever, when I was in high school. And then it just kind of got older as I got older. So when I started entering hookup culture, I was like, wait, I have so many questions about these kinds of things. And I was struggling to find pieces about these like very weird nuances of hookup culture and what I was dealing with. And when you go to Cosmopolitan, like there are really cool pieces about different sex positions and stuff, but I wasn't seeing pieces about like insecurities that people were dealing with during sex and stuff like that. So in terms of it always just reflecting me, once I entered hookup culture, I started putting pieces on our essay idea list, being like, hey, if you guys want to write about this, be pretty cool. And then it just started kind of taking off. And those were the pieces that people were interested in, people wanted to read and write. Um, so yeah, that's kind of just how that happened.
Yeah, I love that. So, going over to your team, I know you said your team is like a big motivation for sticking on. How did you establish your team?
At the beginning, it was just people from Instagram. I posted one night being like, hey, if I started a magazine, would anyone be interested in joining? And I woke up the next morning and see I had like 85 comments. So I was like, okay, there's clearly a need for this. So at the beginning, we would have people just email us samples of their work, whatever, and then I would just take it. Like it was a very casual process. And now we have like more of the I'll have people from Columbia who want to join, and then they'll come into the team, or we just have a bunch of people applying. So much of it has been just like word of mouth. Like it's so funny to me to hear people apply and they'll be like, oh, I live in Transylvania and I heard my friend talking about it, so I figured I would try joining. I'm like, first of all, you're in Transylvania and you know what lithium is. That's insane. Um, so yeah, this is like such a roundabout way of answering your question, but I think most of it has just been word of mouth and people hearing about the magazine through friends, and then they will apply. Or it's people I know in real life who I know are extremely talented, and I'm like, you should come write for us, and then they do.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
So, when it comes to establishing your team, what is the most important thing you keep in mind when finding people to join your team, like some qualities?
Oh, interesting. I will say that when I review applications, which I do with my managing editor, Juliana, we're always looking for writing samples that reflect the stuff that we're already publishing. So sometimes we'll get like academic essays about Shakespeare. And I'm like, this is not necessarily reflective of the kind of work we're putting out. And then I think it's just people who have something to say. Like at the bottom of our applications, we ask people to list 3 essay ideas that are things that they would want to write for us if they were staff members. And that is like probably the most important question on the application, I think, aside from having people answer a question about like something that they're passionate about. I feel like it's a combination of those two things. Like I just want people who have something to say and know how to say it. That's such a generic way of putting it, but it really does come down to that. And I'm sure you feel the same about unpublished. I feel like it's really just those two things.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any advice for anyone wanting to start a magazine that could be also young and 15 years old like you were? Like, what is something you wish your younger self knew?
Oh, I would say first of all, just go full send. Like do not worry about feeling like you're not old enough to do it or anything, because I assure you like plenty of 15-year-olds will latch onto your idea. Like you don't need to worry about that. I don't know what I would tell my 15-year-old self aside from get ready because you're going to be doing this for such a long, long time. But yeah, I think also just I've done phone calls with people who have wanted to start magazines of their own, and I always just like tell them the really boring stuff about like do WordPress over Weebly or things like that. But I feel like just do something that sets your magazine aside, like apart from the others, because in this like weird, very niche community of zines run by Gen Z right now, we're all occupying like very similar spaces in this already very small subculture. So I feel like just do something that sets you apart slightly. So I feel like, I guess like you were saying for Lithium, it's the fact that we talk so much about sex. I feel like just find something that is very specific to what you want to say that other people are not necessarily saying, and pursue that as much as you can.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you with that. Publish is going through a transition period where we also started out as like a submission based zine, but now we're transitioning to more editorial. So it'll
Right.
kind of mirror what an editorial magazine would look like, which is eventually the goal.
That's awesome. I can't
Thanks.
wait to see that.
Thanks so much. So we have a question in the comments saying, you said that as you grew older, you felt that lithium grew with you. Do you think as the years go on, lithium might shift its focus from the younger demographic to appeal more to adults?
That's a really interesting question. Last year I was getting lunch with this guy from Converse because I think we were going to do a collaboration with them, and he made this joke. He was like, "You said that." He made the same question basically, and he was like, "Are you going to be 35 and you're going to have pieces about divorce coming out?" And I was like, did not really think about that." And I guess the answer has always been that I don't have a 5-year plan for lithium. I really don't plan into the future like that because, like I said, it's always just reflected my bandwidth in terms of what I'm able to do on top of school, work, etc., whatever. Um, so I don't know. I definitely think it'll continue. Like once I've graduated college, I'm sure we'll have more pieces about entering the workforce, being a 20 something, navigating sex, love, life, family, whatever. So I do think that will continue to happen. I just don't know when that will stop because it's going to be so funny to me if in 10 years Lithium has pieces about marriage, divorce, and motherhood. That's crazy. I can't imagine that's going to happen. I don't know.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually never thought about that until right now. I also don't have a 5-year plan for us as well because I just like to see where we go, and
Yeah,
go with the
I feel
flow.
like that's a fun part of it. Just not really trying to measure the trajectory or like predict things too far in the future. Just going with it.
Exactly. So going over to where you guys find inspiration. So where do you find inspiration for lithium?
Ooh, so we put an essay idea list out to our staff members, and I think it might be also available on our website. Just a list of things that our editors put together that are things that we want to see from our writers. And I actually have a list of the publications that we look to for inspiration at the top. So for us, it's like New York Mag, N+1, The Atlantic, Vice, Killer and a Sweet Thing, Vulture, Playboy, and The New Yorker. I feel like those are the publications that I read the most and the most frequently. And so it reflects me and my interests, and then that kind of extends to the publications that I'm reading. And then obviously other sources of inspiration would be just like movies I'm watching, music I'm listening to. Like if I'm obsessed with a new artist, I'll be like, hey, we should interview this person or we should have someone write about them. And then just other zines. Like we're obviously inspired by Unpublished, Haloscope, Crybaby, All My Friends, like literally all the zines that you're featuring in this panel. So I think those are all really the sources of inspiration.
Yeah, no, definitely. I have like a fat stack of magazines actually right up there that I like constantly circulate
Yeah.
and look for info as well. So, how did you define your niche within the magazine community? You said earlier that although it's great, the magazine and the zine community on Instagram is so saturated. Do you have any advice for someone that also wants to appeal to Gen Z, but needs to find their own niche?
Right. Well, yeah, I guess that is the one thing that I would tell myself when I was starting because I really didn't have a niche set aside for me. I was just like, oh, I'll do a zine, and then it was basically occupying the same space as any of the other zines were at the time. At the time, I don't think anyone was trying to differentiate themselves or anything like that. But now, because the zine culture is so saturated, like so much more so than when I was 15, especially during quarantine. I'm sure you saw like there have been dozens of zines that have popped up, like an insane amount of them. It's crazy, like it's so cool. And I think that if you want your zine to be differentiated from those, you really do have to find a niche of some kind. So, like I said, for us, it's been sex, but we came into that. Like, we did not have anything that was setting us apart when we started. Truly, like, we were no different from any of the other zines that were popping up. And then we just came into that over time. But I think, if you're starting a zine and you're aware of that going into it, that you want to find a niche that could be really helpful for gaining a following and that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So moving over to hosting interviews, because that's just a fun part of getting able to do this. How do you go about contacting someone for an interview?
This wasn't just like setting up the website when I was 15. This has been something that I've truly just figured out over time. I go cyber stalking for like PR reps. I'll look up like, let's say Cardi B. I'll look up like Cardi B PR rep or Cardi B contact info, Cardi B management, whatever. You find an email address. And then I have like this whole template that I send to them where I'm just like, hi, my name is Olivia. I'm 20 years old. Lithium is a publication that blah, blah, blah. Like I say what we cover, how many site views we've had, how big our team is, um, things like that, how long we've been in existence. And then I write like a very personalized paragraph saying why we want to interview whatever person it is, for what issue, what we would be covering, etc. I just send that out, and I will send like 30 of those in a day. I'll probably do that like once a month, just send like a round of those PR emails and just wait for them to come back. But that's really just been like a trial and error sort of situation. Like I just found a way to write that template over time, and it's been pretty successful. I think definitely if you start with smaller artists, it's a really good way to go about it. Like people with 20,000 followers on Instagram or less are always a good bet.
Yeah, definitely. I remember sometimes I would just sit down and write like 50 emails and then just send them all out. And like it
Yeah,
sucks because like majority of those people will not get back to you, but all you need is like one yes for you to finally
exactly.
get that interview. So I totally feel that. So what do you do to prep for an interview? Do you have any specific things that you like to do?
Ooh, when I do interviews in person, I definitely try to memorize the questions as much as I can because I don't want to be looking at a piece of paper in front of me. But I try to come up with like, I read every interview the person has ever done if possible, like because I don't want to ask questions that the person has already been asked before because you can just go read that interview, whatever. So I try to come up with questions that are extremely specific to them, maybe like niche things that I found in their social media from a long time ago, whatever, not in a creepy way, but you really do want to ask questions that are interesting and that they haven't been asked before. Because I feel like when you're interviewing someone and you're asking them questions that they've never been asked before, they're going to kind of respond with a different level of honesty because they realize you already know so much about them. So that's definitely something that I do beforehand, just trying to immerse myself as much in their social media as possible and learn as much about them as I can.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good way to like connect with them personally. Do
Yeah.
you have any advice for someone who wants to interview another person, like a magazine that wants to interview someone with a bigger following, but is kind of scared that they, like don't have the numbers or aren't big enough and don't really know how to approach it?
Um, I feel like just make your magazine sound as accomplished as possible. Like real, like use the big words. You know what I mean? Like just gas yourselves up a little bit, try to make it sound impressive, be like, we are a Gen Z publication, catered to blah, 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 whatever. Like use all that kind of phrasing and then just send the email anyway. Like I feel like if you can find the contact info for that person, regardless of how big they are, most people are interested in PR, they're interested in being interviewed. Another note that I would add is just that you want to reach out to people when they're actually having a project released. So like I wouldn't want to interview like MA or something because she hasn't released a project in a while. Whereas someone who has just released an album within the last month or two, like they're in the midst of a publicity cycle. So then it's a good time to reach out to them and they'll probably be more receptive to it.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. It's also, from our experience, it also helps to get your name or email on like PR lists. I know that we get
yeah.
millions of emails a day for
Oh,
artists
it's
that
annoying.
want to
It's
get.
good, but it's annoying.
No, it does. It definitely is when they follow up like multiple times and you're like, I'm sorry, I haven't seen this. But yeah, that's like another really good way to try and find to get on their PR lists.
Yeah.
But how is it like managing a big team?
We have, I think, like 115 people on staff right now or something like that, which is crazy. And I'm friends with Remy, who runs Crybaby, and she's always like, I don't know why your team is that big. Like, for what? Um, but it's fun. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's like, it's not unmanageable by any means. I think that if you have a big enough editorial staff, it's fine. Like, I think we have around 12 or 13 editors because I could not handle doing this on my own. You know what I mean? Um, so it's fine to have a big staff as long as, first of all, you feel like it's warranted and necessary. Like, if you couldn't be doing the same job with a smaller staff, then sure, that's fine. Like, obviously, don't just have a bigger team just because you want to have more people on staff. But I don't know. I just feel like if you take on a certain number of editors, then it's fine to do that. And we have GroupMe, so that's how everyone has like a sense of community. It's an app for group chats. So, there's still a sense of community. I just feel like it taps out at like 120 people. Like after that, for some reason, it's so much harder to manage for some reason. So we're like pretty much at our cap right now.
Definitely. What are some pros and cons of working with a bigger team?
Oh, I think when we were smaller, it felt a little bit more intimate, I guess. I wrote for, oh no, can you hear me? My AirPods just randomly connected. I wrote for Affinity magazine for like a hot second, just like I feel like every person who reads zines did at some point in high school. And I wrote like maybe one or two pieces for them. And I remember in their group me, they had like 700 people. And I was like, oh wow, this is a lot. And that's something where it feels like there's no intimacy. The editors probably don't, like, the editor in chief does not know who you are. You're just a name to them. And I never want to have that sort of thing. I'm not dishing on, or like I'm not bashing Affinity. I think they're a cool publication. But for me, I just like I want to know all of my writers' names. I want to know where they're from. I want to know what kind of thing they're writing. And same for illustrators. Like, I can't pair illustrators with writers unless I know the illustrator's work and how it would like match thematically with different writers' pieces. You know what I mean? So like we cap it at 115 because I want to be able to know every single person I'm working with, and edit them accordingly, because every person requires a different kind of editing style, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a question in the comments saying, how did you get your team to interact with each other / help them feel like they're a part of a community?
I like that. Whenever we add someone, like whenever I onboard someone to the team, I introduce them on GroupMe and I'll be like, guys, please welcome Mary, whatever. She's a 17-year-old writer from Missouri. She's written for this publication. Please join me in welcoming her. And then kind of a conversation will start about that person. We all follow each other on Instagram for the most part, so that definitely helps with like just making sure that everyone knows what the other person looks like. There's like a face-to-face sort of connection. And I feel like GroupMe has really worked for us in terms of communication. When I was in high school, we used to do not Zoom, but we would do Skypes. That's what we were using. And that was also really nice to just have that face-to-face sort of connection between writers. There's also a lot of collaboration on pieces, which helps, whether it's between illustrators and writers, or there'll be like multiple writers that are working on a piece together. So I think those are probably the best avenues that we've had for establishing a community. But the group chats are like really the best part of it.
Yeah, definitely. I love seeing the connections that writers make personally on my side. It's so cute.
Yeah.
And like ones that like are in different countries. Like it's like, oh my God, like I did that.
I know.
It's crazy.
Awesome.
So moving over to events, I love all of the events that you guys have hosted. What events have you guys done?
It's obviously been a minute since we did one because of COVID, but then also I was really busy with college applications. I remember we did, when I was a sophomore in high school, we had our first event, and that was like a 1-year birthday party for Lithium in the city. And it was so crazy to me because I was like 16, and then we had, I'm gonna say like 30 or 40 people come, and I was like, it's so weird to see an online community in a physical setting. Like it makes it feel so much more realized and like actually tangible. So that was a cute moment that we had. And then we did a charity event for the Malala Fund later on in, I'm going to say like 3 or 4 years into Lithium. And that was really nice. I think we raised like $2,000 for the Malala Fund. And that was also in New York. We did a collaborative event with Adolescent in 2018, I'm going to say. And that was it was like a photo gallery at junior high, which is a really cool like women's space in LA. And it was all work by and for like queer artists. So anyone who was like LGBTQIA. That was like probably my favorite event we ever did. Like I love junior high, love adolescent, and it was really nice to like have all these insanely beautiful photos. And I remember I made a zine for it and I had to have it printed at Staples, and I was like running to Staples in some random part of LA like 3 hours before the event. It was so stressful, but it was like a very fun experience. And yeah, I definitely want to do more Lithium events moving forward. Post-COVID,
Awesome.
post-vaccine.
Definitely. So you mentioned adolescent content. For those who don't know, what is adolescent content?
So Adolescent is many things. We have like a production company, we have a talent agency. So we sign a lot of Gen Z directors and photographers to do commercials, to do video work. They'll work with big clients like Adidas, Converse, Nike, whatever. I pretty much only work on the editorial side. So we have a website called adolescent.net, and that's very similar to Lithium in that it features writing by and for young people. So it's a very good time. It's very fun, but very similar in terms of like what kind of content we're covering.
Definitely. So going back to events, how do you come up with the inspiration for events?
Ooh, I don't know. I think I would just always put it in the group chat and be like, guys, what do you think we should do? And then we would just kind of bounce ideas off of each other. And sometimes a couple people would volunteer to help plan events. So we would just be looking for venues. I know that for the adolescent, they're like pretty much immediately after. So that was an obvious choice for me. And then for the Malala Fund, I don't know, I just really wanted to do a charity event because I feel like that kind of makes tangible the idea that like we're having an impact in some way, like to have a financial kind of benefit to anyone was really the idea behind that.
Yeah, definitely. What is your favorite part about hosting an event?
I think like probably the physical realization of it. Like it feels so much more real when you see people in real life who read the magazine. Like they're not just icons on a screen, they're like actual real people that are standing in front of you and telling you what their favorite piece is and like what lithium means to them. That's insanely like that is the coolest part. Easy.
Yeah, definitely. Even like Zoom meetings or even like Zoom panels, which is what we're doing right now. I also
Yeah.
agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Um, so for someone who wanted to make an event, like a smaller zine that wanted to branch out and have their first event, what is a piece of advice that you would tell them?
I would say definitely know where your audience is. Like you can go on Instagram and see your analytics and see where most of your followers live. So we have the most followers in New York and then Los Angeles is second. So if I lived in Texas, like would an event have a bunch of people? I don't know. Probably not. But if you live near a city, then it's definitely best to do it there. And then just like you can always put out a post on Instagram and just see what the interest would be. Like I think we definitely made posts either on the feed or
Your audio just got muted for a second.
oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Should I just repeat my answer?
yeah, thank you.
I was just saying that you can check the Instagram analytics and see where most of your followers live. If we hosted an event in Texas, people would not probably come because I don't think we have followers in Texas, or not a lot of them anyway. And then I also just remember putting out a lot of posts on our feed and story asking if people would be interested in going to an event in New York, whatever, like really just gauging interest demographically and making sure that people could come or geographically.
Definitely. So, a question from the comments says, how do you balance school and work on top of dedicating time to the magazine?
This is like little this is the hardest part. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's so hard, especially because I don't know if you guys know what IB is, but it's kind of like AP. When I was doing that in high school and college applications and lithium and working a job in real life, like that is the most stressed I've ever been in my life. But I feel like the philosophy that I've taken on is that my schoolwork is always going to get done. You know what I mean? Like I'm always going to get things done by the deadline. So I may as well do some lithium stuff in the mix of it. So if I know that I have homework for a night, I'll still do a few hours of lithium because the lithium stuff is not the part that makes me extremely exhausted. It's the schoolwork. So I always feel weirdly more motivated to do lithium stuff when I'm doing school because it's a distraction and it's something that I actually enjoy doing. So I feel like my philosophy is just set time aside for the magazine and then the schoolwork will follow. Like the school stuff will always get done, so you may as well put time into the magazine. I've found myself sending emails at very weird times of day because of this. I'll like send emails until 3 a.m. and then go to bed, or like I'll wake up early and do emails, whatever, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I feel that as well.
Yeah.
But now since you're at Columbia, how does that look? Like everyone knows like Columbia is such an amazing school, also a very challenging school. How does that look once you've transitioned into college?
It was definitely really hard freshman year. I was going out on the weekends. I was taking a full course load. So it was extremely hard doing lithium and adolescent at the same time my freshman year. Luckily, COVID has made that a little bit easier because I'm not going out and I have more time. Um, but I don't know. Again, that was just the thing where I had to start setting aside time. But that's a really hard time. Like your freshman year of college, it's so hard to do any kind of creative work on top of that, whether you're freelancing, whether you're doing photography, you run a zine, whatever. It is so hard to find those pockets of time. But I think if you know anyone in real life who's doing the same thing, like I had a few friends at Columbia who were part of Lithium or who were doing similar things. And it was just like, we would talk about it. Sometimes we would like set aside time just for us to like work on that sort of thing. It's hard. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh no, I found time every single day. I did lithium perfectly. Stand by it. No, but you just like, you just find time when you can.
Yeah, definitely. How do you keep yourself organized? Like, do you use any organizational tools or anything like with your team? Like, how do you keep your team organized?
Um, we're on Gmail, so I have a lot of like the little folders. I'll have like a folder for pitches, I'll have a folder for submissions and whether they've been edited, whatever. We have an editorial calendar for adolescents, so that's kind of how I keep track of like when things are being published, whatever. Um, and then mostly like a lot of it is just me texting my editors. Like I'll just text them and be like, "Can you please respond to this email?" And then they'll respond to it, and then I just know that that's out of the way. I don't know, just like a lot of Google Drive, Gmail. I really don't have anything organizational outside of that.
Yeah, definitely. We are also big fans of Google Drive and especially Google Calendar. That's a really good way to
I've never used Google Calendar.
You guys should do it. It's really, really cool. And you can see like everyone's schedules or when everyone has calls. It's a really good way to
Oh, I
collaborate.
do like that. I didn't know you can make it collaborative. That's cool.
Yeah. So what is the process of running a magazine, or how has it been during all of this pandemic craziness in 2021? 2020, sorry.
No, you're good. I don't know. This is another thing that I talked about with Remy, the girl who runs Crybaby. Like, so many people were making zines, and so many people who already ran zines suddenly had so much time on their hands to just devote to their magazines. And that's definitely how I felt. Like, I was done with the busiest part of my freshman year, and suddenly I had all this time to devote to the magazine. So we were doing a crazy number of interviews. I was sending emails constantly. We published like 60 pieces in a month, I think, at one point, which is insane. Like, that's like 2 every single day, which is more than we usually do. So kind of like a zine renaissance. What was happening? Like, I think every zine was really on top of their game because we all had nothing to do but be on technology. So it was just like that was a really I don't want to say it was a fun time because it was not fun amidst everything else that was happening. But it was nice to collaborate with everyone during like the late summer, like the very early beginning of COVID, because it was just like we had nothing else to do. So it was a nice distraction.
Exactly. I feel the same exact way. Like Unpublished wouldn't have started if it wasn't for quarantine. And it's so crazy
Yeah.
like to think like April was that long ago. But yeah, no, definitely a lot going on. So we have more questions from the comments as well. Someone said, if you're comfortable with answering this, just curious, is your magazine a job or do you have another job on the side?
Yeah, I work at when I'm home, I still waitress on the side. That's my job. I get adolescent is definitely like a job. That's like something I actually get paid to do. Lithium, like we do not generate revenue, so I would not consider it a job. It's just something that I really like doing. Um, but definitely, yeah, no, I love waitressing, so I still work outside of that, and I work other jobs too.
Cool. So we also have another comment saying, when you first started out as a writer, were there any writers that inspired you and impacted you as you matured?
Oh, I don't know. I definitely am a huge fan of the personal essay. That's what I make people, or that's just what like a lot of people write for Lithium a lot. And I've been taking some really cool creative writing classes at Columbia. So Kristen Dombeck is probably one of my favorite writers ever. You guys should all read her. She has this essay called How to Quit that's like a very intense essay about living in New York and hookup culture and drugs, sex, whatever. That's something that I definitely look to. And then the most cliche answer of all time is that when I started Lithium, I definitely really looked up to Tavi Gevinson, the founder of Rookie. And I would read like all of her editor letters, whatever she was writing. She wrote like a really cool essay for The Cut last year, I think, about Instagram. So stuff like that. I don't know. Just I think those were definitely 2 big ones. And then I've just been reading like the Edward Snowden memoir. Like I'm just reading weird things right now and just trying to learn more about things that I don't know about. So I'm not sure that there are writers specific to zine culture that have been influential.
Yeah, uh, definitely. So another one is, where do you start in terms of design? Like, are there any ride or die apps or programs that you guys use? So this might be applicable to your website or your print copy.
Okay, well, for this site, we use WordPress to host. And the way that I went about design and the way that I recommend to like literally anyone who's starting a zine is that you can buy themes from sites like Etsy. You can just view the preview and see what the theme would look like for your website, and then you just import it. Or you can even pay to have the theme designer import that theme to your website, which is great. So I definitely recommend that to anyone who's even just starting a website. And then for the print issues, I always hire a graphic designer. I have tried, I think I had Bookright was the name of the design program that I used to use. I have no background in design whatsoever. That is not a strong suit of mine. So I will usually just like hire and pay a graphic designer who has more experience. And they'll typically work in Photoshop or something like that.
Definitely. So where do you want to see Lithium within the next couple of years? I know you don't plan ahead, but do you have any like specific things in mind of like items or things you want to do, or just a general way of where you guys want to shift to?
Yeah. First of all, just to the person who said it in the chat, the name of the writer who wrote that is Kristen Dombeck, Dombek. It's like probably my favorite thing I read in all of 2020, so I definitely recommend. And then as for the 2-year plan, we had people join. I tweeted about this. Like we had people who joined Lithium this week who have worked with like the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Atlantic, and the Washington Post. which is insane. Like those are publications that I really look to. So I feel like my 2-year plan is just to still like to somehow be part of the conversation that is like including those publications. You know what I mean? Like we never would have been even similar or like in any way adjacent to those publications 3 years ago because like the quality has increased since then as I've gotten older. Like it's just become a more high quality publication. I feel like that's so like you can look at the stuff that we were publishing in 2016. It's fine. It's not great. Like I look back and I'm like, that's cute, but we're publishing like so much more thoughtful, like high quality, intelligent pieces now. And so I'm excited to see that part keep developing. Like I want to keep seeing the magazine become more thoughtful and more reflective of the pieces I'm reading in these like bigger publications.
Yeah, definitely. I totally see that when I look at your website. I love the content you guys have. Personally, I read a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I just think you guys have really good quality as well. And it's crazy because like a lot of these writers are still Gen Z and very young, but you can tell that they're super passionate. And I think that's a really good thing to have.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course. So going on a personal level, where do you see yourself in a couple years, or what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do? You have a lot on your plate. Yeah, tell us about that.
I just keep having like one life crisis after another. I really want to go into journalism. I was just telling you before this that I wanted to go to USC for journalism because that's always been what I wanted to do. I was looking at like MFA program acceptance rates a couple weeks ago, and it'll be like 0.8%. Yeah, and then it's like $100,000 to do those kinds of programs, and you get a $12,000 stipend. So like, I truly don't understand how middle class people become writers. It really boggles my mind. But yeah, ultimately, I would love to go into writing. I would love to like end up writing or editing for one of those bigger publications that I keep citing as an inspiration, and then just keep doing Lithium. I think those are and staying in New York. Those are my 3 things.
So we have another personal question. What do you like to write about the most?
I write like the most personal essays of all time. Like it's it's so bad. Like for my workshop, people will be like, "Wow, you're very honest," and I'm like, "That's just your way of saying that I'm severely oversharing." So I write a lot about sex. I wrote a piece for Killing a Sweet Thing about like reclaiming the word slut and whether that's even like a worthwhile pursuit. I've written about like my own experiences with guys with dating. I've written about insecurity. I've written about like body issues, eating disorders. I've written about grief, like literally like anything I'm experiencing. It's very reflective of Lithium and just that like whatever I'm experiencing I want to write about, and I want people for Lithium to write about whatever they're experiencing just like without being censored. So just oversharing constantly.
Definitely. I'm also a very big overshare as well. So I totally relate to everything that you're saying. So that is
Yeah.
everything on our end. Guys, if you want to finish up and ask a couple last questions, but other than that, we're good. So we'll wait a little and see if anyone else asks any more. Thank you so much, Olivia.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was really cool.
Of course. Someone is asking what is the website you guys host with?
Yeah, I just entered it in the chat, but we use WordPress. And I definitely recommend it. It is expensive though. I think I had to pay like $300 for the year for our plan, which is insane. And I would recommend if you don't have that kind of money or if you're just not ready to invest that much in a magazine, I would recommend Blogger. That's the best one in my experience. What do you guys use?
We use Squarespace, but we started out, we were a mess. We started Squarespace and then we went over to Weebly and then realized we missed Squarespace, but also same thing with us. Like we definitely also paid like $300
Yeah.
just because like paying the year off is just the easiest thing.
Yeah, I feel like Squarespace and WordPress are the best too. But
Mhm.
again, that just comes with the price tag.
Yeah, definitely. Someone's asking, how do you inspire followers on social media?
What does that mean for how we inspire them? Like how we gain followers or just how we try to inspire them?
Harmony, if you want to follow up on that.
I can just answer both ways.
Yeah.
um, oh, gain followers. For that, I think a lot of it is word of mouth. I think a lot of it is trying to I have two really great social media people who create posts. We do like the text snippet on top of a graphic, and that's kind of how we try to put our essays out in like a digestible format. And then it's really great because people will reshare those if it's like a really nice snippet that's like digestible, relatable, that they think would be like a nice endorsement, whatever. So people resharing those on their own stories is great. And then yeah, I think just a lot of it is word of mouth. Like if you can make things interactive, have takeovers on your Instagram story from team members, those are both really great ways to go about it. So
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Takeovers as well is really positive going on Instagram Live. And then from
yeah.
our standpoint, I think TikTok is like the best thing that anyone can ever do.
Really?
Yeah, TikTok is amazing. I definitely owe like a lot of the people that bought our first issue was from TikTok because we had a video that blew
Oh yeah.
up. And like you
Oh my
guys need to
god.
get on TikTok.
That's so funny. I've never made a TikTok. Never in my life. I spend so many hours watching them. I've never made one.
No, I know. You guys should make one for Lithium specific because it's such a good way to get people to like go to your website. I know a lot of other
Crazy.
magazines have blown up on TikTok, gotten like hundreds of thousands of views on like a video that they're, like promoting the
Wow.
magazine. You guys should
Maybe that'll
definitely
be my project before I go back to school. Keep talking.
definitely. Someone said, do you suggest to begin with a specific genre or being broad and lean towards a specific genre over time when developing a zine?
Oh, good question. I think we can start being broad and just seeing what people are taking to. I don't think you want to limit yourself too much and say like, oh, this is just a zine about money or something like that, because then when you want to talk about something like life, wellness, whatever, um, then you might feel like you've already limited yourself or like pigeonholed yourself. So yeah, I guess maybe I would start broader and then just lean into a niche over time.
Yeah, definitely. So that is everything we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for asking questions. And thank you so much, Olivia, for sitting down with us.
Thank you so much.